Contents, nut terminology. Types of nuts: hex, heavy hex, nylon lock, jam. Wing, cap, acorn, flange, serrated. T, square, prevailing torque lock. K-lock, coupling, slotted, castle. Panel, weld, spring. A nut is a type of fastener with a threaded hole. Nuts are almost always used opposite a mating bolt to fasten a stack of parts together. The two partners are kept together by a combination of their threads' friction, a slight stretch of the bolt, and compression of the parts. Nuts have three important dimensions: thickness, distance across the flats, inside diameter. Vehicles contain many different styles and types of nuts. Hex nut is the most common type with a standard six-sided shape. Six sides give a good granularity of angles for a tool to approach from good in tight spots. Heavy hex nuts are slightly larger and thicker than standard hex nuts. There are numerous grades and the heavy pattern is typically used for large diameter and high strength bolts. Nylon insert lock nut is a nut with a nylon insert to prevent backing off. Nylon lock nut is used for safety reasons when a nut should not come loose due to vibrations. Lock nuts are often found on front-wheel drive axles or exercise equipment. Jam nuts are very thin hex nuts used in applications where height space is minimal. Used to lock a threaded part in place. A wing nut is a type of nut with two large metal wings, one on each side, so it can be easily tightened and loosened by fingers without tools. The shape of the wings varies greatly in terms of height and width. Wing nuts normally have a rounded base, and are typically stamped or forged. Cap nuts typically appear to be a hex nut with one end dome-shaped. Such nuts can have closed or open crowns. Some are assembled from two parts. Such nuts are often used as an aesthetically pleasing finishing nut. Acorn nuts typically appear to be a hex nut with one end crown-shaped. Acorn nut is used to give a finished appearance by covering the end of the thread. Crowns come in three sizes: normal, high or low crown. Flange nuts integrate a flange to one side of a hex nut. The flange is typically more robust than an attached washer, providing far greater strength. Flanges can be smooth, serrated, or reverse serrated on their underside as required. A serrated face nut is a lock nut with ridges on the face of the nut that bite into the surface it is tightened against. The serrations are angled such that they keep the nut from rotating in the direction that would loosen the nut. Due to the serrations, they cannot be used with a washer or on surfaces that cannot be scratched. T-nuts have an internally threaded central barrel and a flat base with or without prongs. T-nuts come with a variety of features including straight barrels, tapered barrels, 3 prongs, 4 prongs, 5 prongs, all in varying sizes. A square nut is a four-sided nut. Compared to standard hex nuts, square nuts have a greater surface in contact with the part being fastened, and therefore provide greater resistance to loosening, though also greater resistance to tightening. Prevailing torque hex lock nut have a conical top with chamfered corners. The resistance to loosening forces is created by a controlled distortion in the top threads from their normal helical form to a more elliptical shape. Lock nuts are designed to resist self-loosening under vibratory forces. K-lock nut is a nut with an attached free-spinning external tooth lock washer. K-lock nut is also called a Kep's nut or washer nut. It is used to make assembly more convenient. Coupling nuts are long nuts used to connect two male threads. Coupling nuts join threaded rods, pipes, and other threaded parts, sometimes parts of differing sizes. A coupling nut is also known as extension nut. Slotted nut is used in conjunction with a cotter pin on objects that turn or twist, for example on a tie rod or ball joint. Castle nuts are used in conjunction with a cotter pin on drilled shank fasteners to prevent loosening. A panel nut is very thin nut with a relatively large hole commonly used to mount threaded electrical switches. These are often used where light-duty precision fasteners are needed. End panel nuts are of two types: hexagonal panel nut and knurled round panel nut. A weld nut is a special type of nut specifically designed to be welded to another metal piece. There are various types for different applications. Spring nuts are also called speed nuts because they save time in the assembly process. Spring nuts are one-piece, self-locking nuts that prevent screws from loosening during vibration. Speed nut is used in fastening sheet metal or other parts not requiring strength of regular nut. Spring nuts are available in flat, J, U and rectangular styles.
A speed nut isn't as strong as the others, but it can be a fast and convenient way to secure a screw. Once the speed nut is started, it doesn't need to be held.